Hey guys, let's try this again. I'm trying to connect it to Facebook as well. So just give me a second. And then we're going to go live on Instagram. I think it's going to work now. Okay, are we live? Just always give it a second to refresh. And yes, we're live. Okay, perfect. And we're also live on Instagram. So I hope you're all having a wonderful Tuesday so far. Sorry for the technical glitches there. It always takes a second for all the platforms to connect, but we're here, we're live everywhere. And welcome in wherever you're joining from. I'm really glad you're here today because I want to talk about something that I hear constantly, and I mean constantly. And it's along the lines of, different things like, oh, my metabolism has slowed down. It's just my age. My hormones are the problem. And I totally get like that line of thinking and how it could feel that way. But from the outside, like that's exactly what it looks like, right? And what it feels like. You may have hit, your mid to late 30s, your 40s or beyond, and suddenly it feels like the things that used to work just don't work anymore. And same with, like the same food that you've been eating, whether it's like doing the same workouts, following the same habits, and your body is just completely responding differently. So the obvious conclusion at that point is, well, my hormones have changed. My body's no longer responding the same way. My metabolism has slowed down. And a lot of people think this is just what happens. And they've been told, it's not even that they think, it's that they've literally been told this is just what happens. The amount of women that I speak to and conversations that they've had with whether it's their, physicians or family friends or family members. And it's just like, oh, well, this is a part of aging. And here's what I want you to hear loud and clear today. That conclusion is only half the story. Okay. I'm not going to stand here and pretend that things aren't changing. They are. But the half that you're missing is actually the half that gives you your power back. And you don't have to sell for feeling this way. You don't have to sell for feeling like things have to be different. Your body's not responding. So that's exactly what we're going to dive into in today's talk. So if you're joining in, if you're on Instagram or any of the other platforms, if you're on Instagram and you see me just I keep moving this way or vice versa, it's because I'm on other platforms right now. It's a different camera. And quick intro for anybody who's new here. I'm Alexis. I'm a biologist and the founder of Flexus Fitness. I spent over the last decade working with very high-performing women, executive leaders, executives, leaders, women who are super disciplined, super driven in various aspects of their lives, and who are just frustrated with their body, like not keeping up the way that they're used to, right? Not responding the way that they're used to. And what we do at Flexus Fitness is help them understand what's happening underneath, what's happening biologically, and what to do about it. So we're going to get right into it. We've got a lot to cover in this talk. So first off, I always like to zoom out and what's actually happening, right? So it's a lot of people, and nowadays, especially, hormones have become a bit of a what's the word I'm looking for? My brain's not working today. But anyways, hormones have become a bit of a buzzword. There you go. Wow. Okay, I was having a moment there. So hormones have become a bit of a buzzword, right? And I want you to hear, basically in today's talk, after this talk, you're going to realize that, okay, yes, your hormones are changing. They're affecting how your body is responding on a deeper level, but it's not just your hormones. It's really your buffer. So that's really the reframe I want to give you today. And this comes straight from biology. So your hormones are shifting, and that's not the problem. That's supposed to happen, right? And hormonal change is completely natural, and it's expected at this stage of life. So estrogen fluctuates and declines. Progesterone is having a steep decline. That's not malfunction. That's biology doing exactly what it's designed to do. Now, the issue is, what estrogen was quietly doing behind the scenes for all of the years, in your reproductive years, all those years that you never really knew about, right? Until it started to change. A lot of people just associate sex hormones, right? Estrogen, progesterone with the fact that they're having a period, right? Or they're not having a period, they're pregnant, right? So it's really, there's specifically estrogen. It was quietly doing a lot behind the scenes over the years. And estrogen is not just a reproductive hormone. So it's really a neuroendocrine buffer, meaning it plays a direct role in how your brain and your entire body communicates. So it's really key to modulate your stress response. It keeps cortisol, so one of your stress hormones, your primary stress hormone. It keeps that in check. It supports insulin sensitivity. It helps your body just interpret different signals that way it could respond accurately. It can respond proportionally. But then the problem is when, not the problem, but when estrogen is abundant, when there's a lot of estrogen, your body has a wider tolerance for stress. So it has a bigger buffer to handle stressors. And what I mean by stressors isn't just like daily stressors or work stressors, but really things like, whether it's a harder workout and you're recovering from that, or maybe a poor nights of sleep and you're able to recover, stronger from that. A very stressful week at work, your system is able to absorb it easily. It's able to adapt. It's able to move on. So that's when, again, estrogen helps us do all these things. Now, when estrogen starts to fluctuate and then eventually decline, that buffer gets thinner. And I'm not saying this in a way that you become fragile and your body becomes fragile. Absolutely not. It's just understanding that this buffer is becoming thinner. So we need to make sure that that your body is adapting to other stressors and that you're not layering in more stressors because your body is trying to adapt to just regular stressors that it could easily respond to before. So this is where when your body starts losing that buffer, or not losing, but when that buffer starts to shrink, that was quietly keeping everything in balance. That's not your hormones affecting your metabolism. It's a completely different problem, right? It's with completely different solutions, but this does affect your metabolism, which is why I'm talking about it from the get-go. So here's where it gets really important to understand. Your body has an entire stress response system. So it's called the HPA axis. You may have heard people talk about this before. And that stands for hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. So, and in plain language, because you don't need to know that, but it's basically, think of it like the communication highway between your brain and your stress hormones. And when your brain is perceiving a stressor, then, and it could be any stressor. It could be, again, you're doing a really hard workout and it's just in a state where it's perceiving stress, or you didn't sleep well, or digestion is off, inflammation is higher, whatever the case, your body's perceiving a stressor, then it sends a signal down that highway. Cortisol gets released, your stress hormone, and then the body goes into a more protective response. So it goes into a more guarded response. Now, again, when estrogen was there to act as more of a buffer, that system is better regulated, meaning that your stress hormone, your primary stress hormone, so cortisol, spiked when it needed to. It was able to come back down as it needed to. Your body responded to stress and then recovered from it. And that's the key thing. It's always responding to stressors, but what's its ability to recover from those stressors? So without that buffer, with that minimal buffer, your HPA axis becomes more hypersensitive. So your body starts to perceive everyday things as bigger threats than they actually are. And not because the stressors got worse. And this is where a lot of women that I speak to, they're I feel like I'm feeling more anxious, or things are keeping me up at night and I never used to worry about them. And it's not because these stressors changed or they got worse, but it's because your body's ability to absorb them has quietly changed. So again, this is where the stressors in your life, there's always going to be stressors in life, right? So it's not a matter of avoiding stress, but it's a matter of training your body to respond better to them, right? And that's where when your buffer shrinks, which it does during perimenopause, that menopausal transition, your body is going to start treating normal everyday stress like a genuine biological threat. So the reason why I'm mentioning all this is because this is really important to understand what that looks like in your body and how it affects your metabolism, and how the last thing that your body is going to want to do when stressed out is, be able to respond to other things. Let's say you're looking to gain muscle or lose fat or have more energy. It's dealing with a lot of things. So this is the main point, and this is where we always start off with women, is that foundation, and it's typically sleep and stress. They tend to go hand in hand. And again, when I say stress, a lot of women I talk to, they're well, I'm not really stressed. I feel really good. but it doesn't look like just mental or emotional stress, but it can also be physical stressors, right? If you're training a bunch, you're under fueling, you're not recovering appropriately, all these things. Now, what does this actually look like in your body? So what does a hypersensitive stress response actually look day to day? So it looks like for some people, waking up exhausted, even though you've had, like 7 to 9 hours of good sleep. And that's mainly because your cortisol rhythm has shifted. So it's just spiking at the wrong times, it's flattening at the wrong times. It looks like for some women, it could look like eating, again, the way you always have, yet you're still gaining weight, you're storing fat, especially around the midsection, because again, you could be eating like clean, but if you're depending on how you're eating throughout the day, that could affect your blood sugar response, that could affect your cortisol response. And if those two things are affected, that's going to tell your body to store more belly fat. And your body thinks it's under threat, so it's trying to like store that as energy reserve. It looks like for some women, it looks like, doing the same workouts. Again, they haven't changed anything in terms of the workouts they've always done, but they start to feel more tired. They start to feel wiped out afterwards, instead of feeling stronger and recovered from them. And that's where, when it comes to the type of workouts, and this is again I'm kind of going off tangent here, but like this is where nowadays, you're going to see a mix of stuff out there, and they're like, don't do high intensity if you're in menopause, or like stick to Pilates or do yoga. And like, intense exercise is going to just raise your cortisol even more. And that's where, yes, for sure, like high intensity training itself is a stressor. And if your buffer is already thin, even a workout that you used to recover from no problem can now easily push your system past its threshold. But at the same time, we also want to teach your body how to handle stressors better. So we can use high intensity exercise for that with the right, with the right programming, of course. So that's where it could look like that for some women. A lot of women, it looks like just feeling wired but tired. This is something that I hear about a lot for a lot of women, just like anxious yet exhausted. They feel like they're having trouble getting themselves to do things, finding but they're still pushing through, but they can't push through the same way that they used to. And it looks like for a lot of women too, it looks like, trying harder. So more workouts, more food, more workouts, less food, more restriction, and just getting no return for that, right? Getting less back from that. Because in a hypersensitive stress state, more pressure isn't going to produce more results. It's just going to deepen the underlying problem. So when your body, again, is in that chronic stress state, and again, I want to emphasize here that stressors are going to happen. It's not about like quitting your job or, trying to eliminate all stressors in your life. But if you're very busy already, you're overwhelmed at work, there's a lot going on, and then you're still under fueling, you're still overtraining, you're doing all these things, then adding more to your plate is just going to make everything worse, right? And it's not your body being stubborn with you. It's your body being protective. It's designed to do that. It's designed to keep you alive. And that's where that simple reframe, I hope, helps you change how you see the rest of this talk. And this is where too, like if you're somebody who has quietly blamed your body or your hormones, because you believe that genuinely it's like your age or your hormones, and you feel like there's nothing that you can do. There's just things that are outside of your control. And you have no choice but to accept it. That's not true. And if like, once you understand the real issue is that stress response changing, that has become more hypersensitive, now you have something to work with. Right. And it's whatever we input now into your body that either drive the system or regulate the system. And those are always within your control. So you have far more control over your metabolism than what you have led to believe, what you have been led to believe by, whether it's stuff that you're listening to or people that have told you this. And it's not by fighting your biology and by adding more, but it's by understanding what's actually happening, what's responding to, and changing those inputs deliberately. So what can you actually do about all this, right? Now that you understand the stress response is changing, how that affects your body, what can you actually do? And it's really, there's key inputs that could change the signal. So if the problem is, again, you're in that hypersensitive stress response state, what is actually going to change the signal? So there's 4 things. And of course, guys, like there's always some nuance to this, right? Like if I were talking to you individually, I'd probably have more to add to this, right? But I'm just going to go over like the 4 main things, 4 categories. And I want to go through each one quickly because I want you to see how much leverage you actually have here. So first one is how you train. So how are you working out? If you're doing very, very high intensity cardio dominant training, and I'm talking about like the boot camp classes, the Orange Theory style classes, or F45, things like that, those put your body in a moderate state of stress. So those like 45 minutes, hour workouts, go, 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 nonstop. You feel like worked up afterwards. You're exhausted afterwards. That's putting your body in a moderate stress state. Which again, there's nothing wrong with those classes. We have a lot of women who we work with who enjoy those, but they go from like after when they join, they go from doing those like 3 to 5 times a week to like, okay, let's dial that back down to twice a week and focus on other things, more strength specific workouts, more higher intensity trainings that are going to actually bring your body to that upper like intensity state that actually like 8 on 10, 9 on 10 ever, and then bring it back down to recover properly, to train that buffer to handle more. So for women with a very thin buffer, those types of workouts that put your body in that moderate state of intensity of stress, those are going to just deepen the problem, right? So what your body actually needs is purposeful strength training that sends a signal to your body to preserve muscle, to build muscle, with genuine recovery in between sessions, even genuine recovery in between your sets, depending on how heavy you're lifting. If you're lifting a lot, you need more recovery. Your body needs to adapt. So that's where there's lower perceived threat and a stronger adaptation signal. And that's really, really key to take into account when you're doing, when you're programming workouts. Now, when it comes to, so that's number 1, how you train. Number 2 is how you're eating, right? The nutrition piece. Like I said before, I mentioned this earlier, under eating is a stressor. And a lot of women don't even realize that they're under eating. For a lot of women that I speak to, and these are like very active women a lot of the times too, and they tell me their typical day of eating, and it might look like they're eating regularly, but when we, again, unpeel the layers of the onion, they realize, oh wow, like I've been really under eating carbs or protein for the amount that I need. So under eating is a stressor. Skipping meals is a stressor. And I know sometimes it's not done intentionally for a lot of women. It's just like they're back to back throughout the day. And that's when having some structure lean on can really help. But that is a stressor. Low carb restriction. So especially in and around your workouts is a stressor. We need carbs as women. And your body is always interpreting all these as scarcity signals, right? So like, and when your body is perceiving that as oh, I'm in a state where I have to protect, I have to reserve, it's not going to be able to let go of fat. So that's where it's going to hold on to it. So that's where, when it comes to the nutrition piece, we want adequate protein, number 1. I'm sure you guys have all heard that. It's everywhere nowadays. Consistent fueling, and stable blood sugar, right? Those are the 3. And within the stable blood sugar, that means like, making sure that you're eating sufficient carbs, sufficient fiber, sufficient protein. So it's less about how clean you're eating, how much and what you're eating, and how you're going about throughout your day. That is going to directly affect your stress response system. Now, the third thing is how you sleep. And all these things I just mentioned, like typically if you're not eating regularly throughout the day, if you're not eating enough carbs, if you're overtraining, that's typically sleep is going to, it's going to be affected. So that's where, think of sleep as your HPA axis reset. Okay. So that's where when you sleep, cortisol is able to come back down. When that's also when like your brain recalibrates everything, right? And poor sleep doesn't just make you tired, right? When you're having trouble sleeping, either falling asleep, staying asleep, disrupted sleep, but it just amplifies your stress response for the next day. So that's where sleep is really the most powerful tool, recovery tool that we could like the lever that we can pull. And most women, again, are struggling with it, especially during the menopausal transition. But so in terms of that, we got, and it's about, making sure that you're giving your body the right inputs throughout the day, right? So that's where a lot of women, they go, okay, well, I'm not sleeping well. I'm taking all these supplements, and a lot of these supplements are even like just increasing the stress response. But it's really going back down to the basics, right? So that's where, whenever we're working with somebody and sleep is the foundational issue, we're always looking at, okay, patterns throughout the day. And the last thing is how you're recovering. And this is something too where a lot of women are focused on how hard they're able to push in workouts, which of course it's important. You want to be able to push, you want to be able to perform, but it's also how well are you recovering? And that's where the nutrition piece becomes 90% of it, making sure that you're incorporating more, recovery days, actual strategic recovery days. And that's where recovery is not a reward for hard work, but for women in perimenopause and menopause, it's a biological requirement. We need to have a proper recovery strategy, rest days, lower intensity sessions, making sure that you're doing things that are going to intentionally help to down regulate your system. Those are the inputs that are going to allow your HPA axis to really down regulate. And without them, then that buffer never gets a chance to rebuild. So this is really where, for a lot of women, a lot of women I talk to, they have all these different pieces, but it's really bringing it into, like, integrating it into one cohesive strategy. And that's where your body is constantly adapting, and it's always able to adapt. And I think that's really important to hear, because a lot of women just kind of feel disempowered at this stage, and they feel like, well, this is just how it is. I just have to settle. Like, my body is broken. Like, it's all these stories that they're telling themselves. And I get it. I personally went through a lot of hormonal issues after my accident. I was telling myself those stories, but I promise you guys, like, and I've seen just with the thousands of women that we've helped, when you change the signals, when you give your body the right signals, your body has every reason to respond differently. But it's not one thing. It's not one magic thing. It's not one magic supplement. It's being intentional with the entire strategy together. And of course, your body's dynamic. Life is dynamic. Things are going to change week to week. So it's about making sure that you're working around that. So here's really what I want you to walk away with today. Your metabolism didn't betray you, even if it feels like it. It didn't betray you. It's not betraying you. It's not trying to fight you. And your hormones are not the entire problem. Okay. That's not, it does change how your body responds on a deeper level, but your body is doing exactly what it needs to be doing when its buffer thins and when the stress response becomes hypersensitive. And it's really just protecting you the only way it knows how. And even though it doesn't feel like it's protecting you, that's really what's happening. And it's trying to find that, trying to recalibrate, trying to find that balance. And the women who figure this out, who stop fighting their biology and learn how to work with it and give it the right tools and systems to work with it, those are the women who get their body back, get their power back. And it's not because they found more willpower. It's not because they found more time. It's not because there's this magic secret recipe that they're following, but it's because they finally understood what their body was responding to and how to go about it. So I'll say, like, you have way more control than you think. The inputs are changeable. The signals are changeable. And when the signals change, that's when your body changes with them. Now, if you're listening to this right now and you're going, okay, like, that makes a lot of sense. I've heard this before, in terms of like stress, the stress response. You're understanding more about like how it's not just high cortisol, but it's more about how your body is responding to stressors. But you don't know what those specific inputs could look like or what they should look like for you specifically. That's exactly the type of work that we do inside our one-on-one program. We're really looking at the entire strategy. So what your body has been through, where it is now, your current training, your nutrition, your recovery, your stress load, what's going on in your life, and really building a picture of what your body is actually responding to right now. So that way we could see what we need, the gaps we need to fill in, what we need to change. And as always, ladies, like, if that's something you want to explore, you want to dive into a bit deeper, you could always reach out to me personally, or you could comment the word signal below, and I'll reach out to you personally, and we can have a real conversation in terms of what's been going on and figure out whether or not we'll be the right fit to help you, the right team to help you. So that's basically it for today. If you guys have any more questions about this, I'm just going to check on, I know Facebook lags a bit. So I'll check later. And Okay, so that's good, guys. So thank you so much for tuning in. And if you guys have any other questions or any other topics you'd like me to cover in future lives, then I'd be happy to address them. So I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you later. Take care, guys.